June 18th, 2020, 2 p.m. This is the Marina Examination Town Hall meeting. I asked the clerk to call the roll, but I guess I'm the only roll callee, hey? So just to get started real quick, let me just recognize a few people in the room. First off, let me thank the mayor for handing me the gavel for this afternoon to let me chair this meeting. We have Commissioner Helen Price sitting over here to my right. Commissioner Nancy Hodges is here as well. I know that Commissioner Douthert is on the line, and former Commissioner Weinstein, I see her in the back of the room as well. If I'm missing anybody, I apologize. First and foremost, just a little bit of ground rules, if there are any. This is your meeting. This is a town hall meeting. I'm just kind of the arbitrator at this point, or the host. The idea is pretty simple. You have a question, raise your hand. We'll have you come up here and sit down and state your name and ask your question, state your comment, and we'll kind of go from there. The objective of this is very casual, guys. We're not, nobody's out here for blood. This isn't a political meeting. My only goal here, and the only reason, first off, I think town halls are a fantastic idea. I think we should do them monthly, if not more often. I suggested this idea 15 months ago, and I'm glad we're having our first one, and I would like to continue on a series of them. We had a pretty good turnout today, and I mean, there's a lot of topics in the city that we do need input from the residents, and I think this is a great way to give you the opportunity to have a little bit of up-close and personal time without sitting up there and then the buzzer going off every 3 minutes when you're in the middle of a speech, right? So, like I said, let's not, I don't expect this to last any longer than an hour and a half or 2 hours, if it lasts that long. I would like to stick to the facts, okay? There's a lot of facts here, and there's a lot of things to go over, but I think the most important thing to remember, and I hope Mr. Brooks doesn't mind me sharing an email exchange I had with him earlier this week, I don't really care what side of the fence you are politically, whether you like me or not, or whether you voted for me, or where you plant your flag. The most important part of this thing, okay, is to make sure that we're doing our job up here, okay, and make sure that, wherever the chips fall or where the chips lie, again, it doesn't matter where you lie politically, there are a lot of unanswered questions on this thing. And the reason it got to this point for me is I kept asking questions, and I kept getting runaround answers. And then I started doing some digging, and I kept asking more questions. And if you saw the last meeting, I had my city treasurer, sitting in front of me saying, I'm uncomfortable answering these questions. Guys, that puts me in a precarious position because I have to answer the questions of the public. And if one of my charter officers can't answer those questions to me, then I'm going to keep digging and try to find out some more. So again, there's nothing excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Let me turn that off. There's nothing contentious about this. Let's have a nice discussion about it, and at the end we'll see where we are, and then we'll go from there. Okay. First things first, the origins of this. The origins of this are pretty simple. Okay. If you just turn to page 76 of your book. We'll go over this press release in depth, but the origins of this are the second paragraph, if you guys will read this with me. The audit was performed after the city internal auditor, John Hauser of Wells, Hauser, and Schnatzel, expressed concerns following their annual review of the city finances. Mr. Hauser's concerns led the city's director of finance, Walter Pierce, to have financial staff perform an on-site evaluation of the operations of the marina. The review revealed gaps in inventory, record keeping, and more. I mean, let's just take that sentence by sentence real quick. John Hauser sat at the podium here numerous times in front of the board, and I questioned him about this a bunch of times. And John Hauser stated, first off, he really didn't remember the conversation, but he did state that he remembered telling Walter a couple of years prior to this audit ever even taking place that there was, in his own, and I'll quote him, there was a communication problem between the marina and the finance department, and then it morphed into this. That's exactly what he said, unquote. When I pressed John a little further on it, I basically said, John, you do know that you are being hailed as the catalyst for this whole thing? And Mr. Hauser looked right into us and said, I did not know that. okay? So let's just take that for what it is. I'm not saying Walter was lying. John Hauser said he said that, but that certainly doesn't corroborate what Walter Pierce said to the Beach Beacon that week and said that at the insistence of John Hauser did not insist on any internal audit, okay? The second part of this, Mr. Hauser's concerns led the city's director of finance, Walter Pierce, to have a financial staff perform an on-site evaluation of the operations at the marina. When I asked Mr. Pierce about this the other day, Mr. Pierce did not remember this occurrence, and probably for good reason. It never did happen. I spoke to a couple people at the marina and said there was never an inventory evaluation. There was never anything until after the audit was over. This did not prompt the audit. This did not set the audit in motion. This was, and this is being hailed as the reason why we did this thing. And I hate to go back to the beginning, but you have to in order to get the feel for this, okay? So both of the first two things, are in revealed gaps in inventory, record keeping, and more. There was one time that the HR director went down there, counted the drawer, looked at the gas receipts, and left. That was the on-site evaluation. A few weeks later, we have a fraud examination going on the marina, and with no real reasoning as to why. So that's really all I have as far as what prompted it. Does anybody have any questions? Would anybody like to comment on that before we go to the next topic? Commissioner Weinstein. You have to come up to the mic, please.
Like that? Yeah. Debbie Weinstein, 441 129th. I would just like to know, was Hauser or anybody from Carr, Riggs, and Ingram invited to come to this little town hall meeting? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah,
You did?
This is a town hall meeting. Everybody was invited. I don't know why Walter's not here, to be honest with you.
No. I'm wondering about the two principals, the John Hauser and the... You're making comments about them, and I just didn't understand.
I'm not making comments about them, Commissioner. I'm just telling you facts about them. That's all I'm doing. I'm not expressing my opinion. I'm telling you factual stuff that they said on this dais. Okay? Anybody else on that? Okay, so that kind of sets the groundwork for what we're looking at. The B on this, and I'm assuming, let me go by this. B on this is, what is this actually? An audit, an examination, or an investigation? This has been a fun one. If you look at the press release that I just referred to, you can see in the beginning it's called an audit. You can look throughout the commentary, and it is called everything from an investigation to an examination to an audit again. Look, and I think I know that there's somebody in this room who read 1,000 pages of this thing and read everything back and forth and knows how to answer this question probably better than I do. So if I could call Mr. Reese Noren up to the podium, he's got probably the best definition of this I've ever heard. So I'd like to turn it over to Reese.
Reese Noren, 363 Medallion Boulevard. First, the good news. I'm not an expert. I'm a dumb naval aviator. And when I read this, I have my own copies at home. I didn't bring the full copy with me. But when I read this report, I was confused, because very clearly in the second paragraph they stated that it was not an audit, and yet everybody, most everybody, was referring it to as an audit. The city manager, who I talked to at that time, not this manager, but the prior one, I talked to my commissioner, and he said that it's a audit. Asked him, why did it say it's not an audit when he stated it was. And he said, well, the terms are interchangeable. And that didn't seem like a real answer to me. So after a couple of months and no real clear answers, I asked accountants, I asked auditors, I asked attorneys, just about everybody that were my friends got tired of me beating this dead horse. And so in desperation, I called CRI. I told them who I was and what I was looking for. The woman said that the team who performed the examination was out of town performing one, but there was a woman there that she thought could help me. So she connected me with that woman who was an auditor. She gave me her name, and I told her what I was looking for. And I told her, I'm just a dumb naval aviator. I don't understand. I don't have any expertise per se in audits. I've been audited in the government. I've been audited in civilian life. But I've never heard of a forensic examination, and it says right in here it's not an audit, and yet everybody's calling it an audit. Sometimes they don't even leave put the forensic word in there. And I said, can you give me in plain common words what the difference is and why? And she said, well, I'm not on that team. We only have one team in our organization that does the forensic examinations, but I think I can explain it to you. And she said, the forensic examination is a search for fraud. Oh, thank you. I said, what's the difference between the forensic examination and an audit? And she said, well, there's many differences. The protocols that are used for conducting an audit are very different from the protocols that are used for conducting the forensic examination. The objective of the examination is different than the objective of an audit. I said, so it's basically an investigation, and I asked her why they didn't use the term investigation, and she explained to me that we are an auditing firm. We are not a policing firm, and we do not prosecute. We perform audits and we perform searches. We figure the facts and we deliver what we find, and it's up to the client what they want to do with it. He said, well, thank you very much. I said, so you should not, it's wrong to refer to this as a forensic audit. And she said, well, it's not an audit, but it is forensic. And to call it a forensic audit is a misnomer. And I said, golly, misnomer. I know what a misnomer is. Thank you very much, because all the people that I asked were giving vague answers, and she gave a straight answer. It's a misnomer. Conclusion. The conclusion I was able to reach because of this is there are two reasons why people would refer to this as a forensic audit. Number one, they are misinformed. They really don't know the difference between a forensic examination and an audit. Number two, they really do know the difference, but want to use the term audit because it's softer. It is not as condemning as a criminal investigation. So that was satisfying to me, to find someone who could give straight answers and could tell why for the common layman. If anyone has any questions, I'll be glad. I learned a lot of other things. Life's a learning experience. As young as I am, I'm still learning.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Noren? Okay, thank you, Reese.
You're welcome.
Okay, so letter C of this is the timeline. So we've kind of gone through this. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Tom Edwards, Madeira Beach resident, protected address. So this is from the American Institute of CPAs, and it says an audit is of financial statements. The CPA plans and performs an audit to obtain reasonable assurances, which is a high level of assurance about a financial statements are free from material misstatement. Such procedures may include inquiry, physical inspection, observation, third-party confirmation, examination, and other procedures. An examination are audit-level engagements designed to provide a high level of assurance on information other than historical financial informations. They may be looking at internal controls, they might be looking at the security of the system, that type thing. I spoke with Mr. Kincaid yesterday, and he is the manager of their forensic division. He travels throughout the state, does conduct forensic examinations and audits. Many times they have come up with information to aid people either in a civil lawsuit or in a criminal investigation to assist law enforcement. So my feeling is that a lot of people, and I agree with this gentleman, sometimes saying something is an examination rather than an audit, saying an audit sounds a little softer. Some people are confused by the two terms. I'm just reading what the definition is by the American CPA service here.
You know, that's kind of why I put that on there. My question is exactly your question. What exactly are these different things, and why were they called or being used interchangeably throughout? Because I'll tell you, I get audited at my store twice a year, and all it is numbers. That's it, just straight numbers. Here's my inventory. Here's what I'm supposed to have based on my purchases. Let's settle it up and see where we're at. They don't talk about my tone at the top, or they don't talk about anything like that. So that's just what a straight audit is. So to refer to it as a straight audit, I think we're all in agreement that it wasn't just a straight audit. There was more to it than that. And that's all that question is. That question's not, I'm not drawing a line in the sand saying I know what it is and nobody else does. I was more asking for my own edification. Anybody else on that topic? I'm sorry.
Helen Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue, here in the beautiful city of Madeira Beach. I think the fact that this document says it does not constitute an audit, right there, and it admits right out front that it does not constitute an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, which are quite strict. If anybody is involved in any business or has been audited, there's very certain and quite strict rules auditors have to follow when auditing some books, and they have to certify that they used certain standards when they did the audit. This fraud investigation, at least that's what was signed for back in October of 2018, that's a little more nilly-willy, right? You can go in, if you're doing a fraud investigation, you ask everything, you get in there, you dig under pull up the carpet and take a look. And there's no standards. And I think that's the difference. And just me as a citizen at that time felt hoodwinked when I sat here and probably agreed with everyone, so the $50,000 to do an audit of the marina doesn't sound that terrible or bad, or maybe they needed it, and assuming that there were red flags and all this stuff, I personally didn't have a problem with it. But then as I grew to learn that it wasn't an audit and that it was a fraud investigation, and then when they didn't find fraud, they changed the name to something else and then to something else, and maybe this will come up in your timeline, I just feel that this was, that I was lied to, and that my tax money went towards something that was not what it was represented to me as a citizen.
Mr. Brooks was first. Tom, oh, is that right? Okay.
Tom Edwards, resident. So in the report, it specifically says they perform the engagement in accordance with Statement of Standards for Consulting Services #1 as promulgated by the American Institute of CPAs. There is a standard for doing these type of examinations.
arguing with you. I think we're just trying to determine what it is, that's all. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're going to get, we'll get to the report here in a minute. Jeff, that's fine. Come on.
So Jeff Brooks, 425 150th Avenue. So this goes back to what you started with is, so what did the contract actually ask for that the city requested for the $35,000? What did it say? Did it ask for a contract for a forensic examination, or did it ask for a forensic audit?
It's an excellent question, and honestly, you're missing the first $15,000. So there was a, and we're going to kind of roll into that under board approval. So if you just wait 1 minute, we'll get to that in a second. But that's, yeah, and that'll flow through the timeline as well. You're just jumping ahead on me real quick, but we'll be there in a second. Don't worry, we'll get to that. Anybody else? All right. So the timeline's simple. I mean, we'll just go to where we are at this point on the timeline. Basically, we spoke about Mr. Hauser. This all started, and I'm just going off of what our press release, which is telling us how the city started this, because this turns into a pretty big deal. As you know, spend $50,000, there has to be a reason, right? Mr. Hauser told Walter 2 years prior to this that there was something going wrong. Now, you know, okay, I'll take Walter at his word, but nothing happened for 2 years, right? And then all of a sudden, even by Walter's own admission, Mr. Hauser never told this information to City Manager Evans, but somehow this rolls into this audit. I do find it, I find it a little scary that when Vince Tenaglia was here, there was never any communication problems between the marina and the finance department, okay? Never, okay? In fact, and I think one of the major reasons was that when Mr. Hauser came to town, and I can speak as a former employee, when Mr. Hauser came to town, Vince and John would go, if there's an, obviously in-house, they would deal with the department's in-house. I had them down at the rec center. We would sit at my desk, and we would pour through everything that they needed to see. Any other questions, I'd get called back to City Hall. But we spent quality time together figuring out if there were any gotchas in the audit report. Then I know that Vince went over to the marina, and he would sit with Dave and Megan and Brian Crabtree, go over it with Mr. Hauser across the board, okay? Never did I hear ever, while I worked here, about any communication problems between the finance department and any other department. And our audits were sparkling, okay? So, you know, I'm just kind of giving you the feel. This is what started this whole ball rolling. It started because our auditor might have mentioned something 2 years prior to our finance director, who then said he conducted an on-site audit, although the other day he said he didn't. And all I asked for was, okay, well, if there was an on-site investigation, where's the report? Has to be a report. If you saw all these gaps in, I mean, what was it, gaps in inventory, and where's the report? And no report is to be found, okay? I asked for it numerous times. Nobody can produce a report, okay? So that tells you the beginning of this audit, and the reason we got to the point that we got to in order to start the ball rolling. Ain't a whole lot of facts floating around there. So I just wanted to point those out to you. That's all I really got on the timeline, and I think we'll kind of uncover a few more things as far as the NDA and everything else going forward here. Does anybody have any questions on the timeline and where we are currently in our process?
There are several memos going back and forth between Mr. Tenaglia, Karen Paulson, and the marina with issues that were occurring. Tenaglia, the former finance director.
Okay.
And so here's one from Vince to Karen Paulson. I guess she collected the data. So with a little probing, I guess they came up with an updated list of slips. They went from 71 to 86 now. Apparently, they didn't have accurate numbers as to how many slips and things they're supposed to have. But I don't want to go through each one of these, but I'll be glad to show them to you. You know, there was things why fuel reports did not register any volume sold, why they were having some problems. Why they
I don't mean to interrupt you. Do you have answers for those as well, or just the questions?
There are a few. And, you know, Megan, are you guys still having problems with fuel receipts? I've noticed there are still times when there isn't one. They were forgotten about. I told the guys to have to get them every night type thing, you know. But there were still things with policies, some procedures that, you know, they weren't doing. There's another little more extensive one that I have to find here that, that Vince sent out. And then there's, you know, there's money that was waived for late fees and things like that that were never explained. Here's one from April 22nd, 2016, from Vince to Karen and Dave Moscano. Following up on previous discussions, I'm fine with Marina continuing to shop fuel prices on an ongoing basis, but moving forward, we need to be receiving requisition forms indicating the quoted prices rather than the sticky notes or emails. Please have Megan complete a requisition form next time around and make sure Dave signs off. You know, we need to have the vendor information on file for each of the vendors. You know, just.
I mean, does it say he complied with those orders? I mean, those look
not.
like internal communication that.
Right, it is.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Communication, right.
believe me, I got
Right, so.
1,000 emails
You know,
coming down to me.
it still indicates that there's still miscommunication. There's information that the finance department wasn't getting from the marina, and
But Tom, I guess my question is, do we know whether or not they received the information? It doesn't seem like these are lingering issues. It seems like, you know, there was a request from finance for the marina to do something, and I don't know. I don't have these in front of me, so I'm speculating. But these are requests from finance. They don't seem like they're harshly toned that, hey, you guys are stealing money.
No.
Let's get on this. Okay.
no.
So
In
if
fact, the
they're-
report never even said,
What's that?
the report never even said that.
Right, right, but you know, but there has been speculation, and I heard somebody mention this in the meeting the other day that there's hundreds of thousands of dollars unaccounted for. I've never seen a report that said anything about a couple $100,000 unaccounted for, ever seen that report. Okay, because then you're a law enforcement guy. What happens then?
You know,
Okay,
you'd be,
but somebody said that in that meeting. I'm not going to bring up who it was, but somebody said in that meeting there's hundreds of thousands of dollars unaccounted for. Okay, that's not true.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Dorian.
Doreen Moore, 13019 Boca Ciega Avenue. Kind of a general, kind of maybe rolling back to what prompted it. I guess that's my question. Why are we here? I thought we were moving forward. I thought that, yes, there's questions, there's speculation, there's things that have been said, but you're not going to resolve all of that a year and a half, almost 2 years later. If somebody wants to misstate at a meeting, that's not up to you at this point in time. If there's been, you've made assumptions, other people have made assumptions, everybody here has opinions. And my thought process is, well, we have a report that shows that there are actions that need to be taken. The point that Tom Edwards was trying to make, and I think others, is that, you know, this isn't something that happened 6 months ago or even a year ago. There's been some ongoing management situations. He pointed out emails. As with any department, okay, there were a lot of questions. There were things that came to light that accounting-wise, no one has pointed out that there was any kind of stealing or fraud. So what we have is a report that says that there were poor management decisions being made. Why can't we move forward and correct the marina? And why are we here today trying to unring a bell from 2 years ago?
Unring a bell? Do you know
Why-
what we did? Do you know what we did to the people? Do you know what happened? And I said this earlier, Doreen, and excuse my tone, but I said this earlier. This isn't political. This isn't, hey, my friends were in charge then, leave it alone, okay? This isn't political. This ruined a man's career. This report, stop, hold on. This ruined a man's career, okay? All I'm searching for, and you just said, everybody's got their opinions. I'm all for it. But we only have to deal with one set of facts. And why am I unringing the bell? Because for a year, I tried to bring this subject up. And what happened? For some reason, we had a vote on the commission, and I got outvoted 3-2 every time just to discuss an issue. And you know what I did this time around when we got started? I said, hey, that can't happen again. If you're in the minority, you were elected by the citizenry here, okay? So you have the obligation and the right to talk about anything you want to. So because I was muffled for a year, you're going to hold that against me? No, no thanks. And it is my responsibility now, by sitting up on that dais, to make sure that we come to the truth, not to come up with innuendos, not to brush it under the rug so we don't embarrass people, that we come to the truth. That's where we're at.
Thank you for the lecture.
Well, thank you, Doreen. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
And the sarcasm as well.
And yours as well. Go ahead.
I appreciate the opportunity. Okay? This report was done by the professionals. I understand.
We're not at the report yet.
Could I finish, please?
I'm just telling you, we're not on topic. If you're going to stay on topic, I'll let you speak. If you're not, return to your seat. When we get to it, when we get to the report, you can have all the time you'd like. Fair enough?
No, it's not.
Okay.
As often occurs in these meetings, you tie everybody into knots, you go off on tangents, and then you expect us to react. All right? So my point is that why is it your job to come back and say that this report has besmirched an employee? Why is this your job now to do that when we had professionals who came in and said, there are things that need to be done and need to be cleaned up? And then...
Get to the report, I promise. I promise. Thank you, Doreen.
Debbie Weinstein again, 441, 129. I'm just listening to us right now, and the only times that the word stole or steal has ever been used has been by you, Mr. Andrews, 2 times.
Really?
Yeah. Right now, okay? I've never heard it. I've never heard it before. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've never actually heard it at a meeting, except
Okay, it was brought up in the last meeting. I was addressing the comment from the last meeting. So I apologize, Commissioner Weinstein, for not making that more relevant. Okay? It was brought up in the last meeting that there's money that is physically missing. And that's not an accurate statement. I just wanted to clear that up so that that could be on camera, okay? Thank you. Okay, anybody else on timeline? Okay, cool, because now we're going to get to the fun stuff. If you turn to page 73, okay, so folks, this is where this kind of stuff gets a little troubling to me, okay? So as the timeline goes, we start this audit process. There's an investigation going on down at the marina. Around the August timeframe, the city manager came to and this is where we're getting to your question. So there was $15,000 that was spent initially, because the city manager does have the right to spend up to $15,000 on this investigation, audit, whatever we're going to call it at this point. In the beginning, it was called an audit, just so everybody's aware. So by August, the city manager stood before the board and for the first time ever brought up the fact that he needed $35,000 extra to complete this audit. Now, I'd watched every meeting prior, and I saw the meeting notes. And this was never brought up in a workshop. This was never brought up anywhere before that first $15,000. He did have the right to do it, but granted, it was never discussed. Okay? It got brought up at a Board of Commissioners meeting that he not only needed the $15,000, but he did an additional $35,000. Okay? Well, a young man stepped up to the podium from the audience and said, well, where's the first report for $15,000? Where was the first report? And I was told I would get that. Once again, there's another report. First, we're missing the inventory report from the marina, okay? Secondly, the first $15,000 that we spent There's no documentation, there's no report, there's nothing to verify what was done for that first $15,000. Never seen it. Asked for it 100 times, never seen it, okay? Next, city manager's asking for $35,000 extra. And the conversation for $35,000 extra for a marina audit examination, okay, lasted about 3 minutes, okay? The only person that asked any questions during that time was Commissioner Hodges, who basically said something to the effect of, what in the heck is this? What is this money for? Motion was made, vote passed 4-1. No discussion at all. So $50,000 for an audit that we haven't seen one bit of paperwork on, okay? So that's where we are there. Then, after digging, and I got this by accident, by the way, so some people went through a lot of trouble not for the public to see this, but here is, this report was delivered, just so we can go forward here a little bit. This report was delivered to the board on January the 22nd, okay? This NDA was signed by Walter Pierce, so there's another handful of them. So we didn't have to load up this packet. There's another handful of them, was signed on August 31st, okay? I'd appreciate if you read the first sentence. I am in receipt and acknowledge that I have been provided the City of Madeira Beach Fraud Examination Report on October 31st, 2018. Now, somewhere along the line, this went from a forensic examination to a fraud examination. Nobody talked about a fraud examination. This was never discussed. This was never brought up when he asked for $35,000 more in August. This was supposed to be an examination, okay? Nobody talked about fraud. Nobody talked about anything else. But apparently, there was a report. I mean, it can't be any more obvious. There was an NDA signed. There was a report that was distributed on October 31st. I have asked for said report. That report does not exist. Nobody knows where that report is. Nobody's seen that report. So why are we signing an NDA for a report that doesn't exist? I don't know. So if you're going to leave here without any questions, guys, you've got better information than I've got, okay? I also have another question, okay? So let's go to the next. So the next one, your next page is page 74. That's Dave Marsicano's signature at the top. This is for the draft for the forensic examination report. Totally different report. Now, this report does exist. This is the one you've all seen, okay? And we have that there. And there's another NDA signed for that. But my big question for you, okay, and I hope I don't stump anybody with this, but we operate this government in the sunshine. Completely, 100% in the sunshine. You want a document, you go to the clerk, you get it, okay? Completely operated in the sunshine. Can somebody tell me what the need for any NDA whatsoever for a city to be signing when your total operation is in the sunshine? And especially for a taxpayer-funded report. If you have an answer to that one, please let me have it, because I am completely befuddled by that one. And if that one doesn't shock you, I don't know what is going to. Oh, I'm sorry. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. And if you read Walter's or you read Dave Marsicano's, actually that one's even better, there's actually a list of fines that if you talk about a public document, if you discuss this public document, you're going to get fined $500, you're going to get fired, you're going to get, I mean, are you kidding me? A non-disclosure agreement for a corporation or a city that operates completely in the sunshine for a taxpayer-funded audit or examination. Now I'm saying it. Anybody? Yeah, any questions? Yeah, I'm done with that. Yep.
As I read, Jeff Brooks, 425 150th. So as I read this NDA, and I have had to sign a few of these, and I hate when somebody jams an NDA in front of me and says, sign this, because I saw Walter talking to you that day in this room via video and went, I personally understood why he was uncomfortable in his answer, because when you, as an employee, are slid a document and said, sign this, it's like what's my choice here? Zero choice. You get to sign. You have no idea what you're signing for. And the way I understand from the NDA in the sunshine state is that he's not allowed to discuss this until it becomes public. That's the only reason for the NDA. Am I correct about that? Okay, so that's, I mean, that's the only, that would be my only reasoning for what you're saying.
That I think the one thing I had a problem with Walter's response was, this was a city treasurer. He's a charter officer. Nobody should be slipping something to him, telling him to sign something, and he signs it. I guess it depends on who it was who slid it to him, because he certainly didn't have any answers for me. So I don't know. I guess that's going to be another. I don't know. You can answer who wrote the NDA? Great. Thanks.
So I asked Tom Edwards, President, I spoke with Mr. Pierce and asked who wrote this for him. He said it was Jonathan Evans is the one that had wrote it. And then the same one I asked him who wrote Dave Marsicano's, he said Jonathan. Now, I can tell you that, and I'm only guessing on this part, if you had a forensic examiner come in to do an investigation, and at the time that the initial was occurring, and that's why this date is October 31st, is so that there may have been a draft that was written, and they found things that was still concerning to them, which is why they wanted to continue the investigation and brought it to the manager's attention to bring to the council or the commission. That's why he would have signed this, because they would want to disclose, because it's not going out to the commission to make it a public document at that time. And at that time, it could have been considered as an audit, or perhaps Jonathan misused the proper term. But then when it was completed and Dave signed his NDA, it was an examination. I'm just...
Contradiction on is you're signing two different things here. One was a fraud examination, and one was a forensic examination.
Right.
Okay? And when I've asked for the fraud, did you ask for the fraud examination, the one on October 31st?
What I just mentioned is it very well could have been the draft for what you have.
Well, they're two different things.
Well,
One's a fraud examination, one's a forensic examination. Where is a copy of the fraud examination
if
that Walter Pierce could
if
review?
they saw that there was money that couldn't be accounted for, not that that was stolen, but as to internal controls and following the money, that's why they were continuing to ask, let us delve deeper into this. Well, as an investigator, as an investigator, I can tell you that
Okay, well,
will
I would actually like to hear from them. No disrespect to you.
Absolutely.
Now, if you bought this up to me in November, I'd say you're 100% correct. But there was no fraud ever found. So what were they continuing to investigate? So my point to you would be, if there was a fraud examination that was delivered on October 31st, whether it was complete or not, okay, and there was no fraud found, why wasn't it over? It should have been complete. That should have been it. We could have saved ourselves some money.
if it's in draft form until the city manager has reviewed it and the finance director, and then it goes to the commission in its final draft, it's not public information
This is in
until they do the
October.
report.
The final draft was delivered in January. This is a small municipal marina we're talking about. We're not talking about a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar company. We're talking about a small $2.5 million marina.
Well, there was a lot of things that were found in the report, as you said.
Well,
and
we'll get to those
that.
in a minute. Yeah, those are going to be fun. I can't wait for that discussion. But yeah, I mean, this scares me. It really does. There's no reports. So that's the third report that I haven't found. Okay, the inventory report. Okay, the first draft of the August draft, or the August report for the $15,000 that we paid, not existent. And this October 31st NDA, I don't know what there was an NDA for. Like I said, we can speculate all we want. All somebody's got to do is deliver it to me, Tom, and I can answer all those questions. So can you.
Did anybody ask CRI for that draft?
CRI, when we have experts here that were dealing with it. I mean, Walter Pierce was our city treasurer. He was the one in charge of it. I didn't say that. I just said I don't have it. Yes. I just said I didn't have it, Doreen. I said I've asked for this report a bunch of times, and I got a full-time job. I have administrators here that make a lot of money. If I'm looking for a report,
You know what? So do
they
we
should be-
residents have full-time jobs, and we're here to try to help resolve this and move forward.
Okay.
So my question was, for the record,
I did not
was-
call CRI.
Thank you. And, alleging that it doesn't exist, if you Yeah, well, but you also said that, you know, it couldn't be produced, and so I'm just suggesting, that if you wanted the report, we could have asked CRI.
I asked Walter for it last meeting, and it hasn't appeared yet, Doreen. I don't really know what you'd expect me to do. Should I go behind everybody's back and call CRI myself to get it? Okay, thank you.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bay Shore. Don't want to beat a dead horse, but the first sentence says, I am in receipt and acknowledge that I have been provided the Madeira Beach fraud examination report. So it had to be given to the city. So my next question is, our keeper of the records is Ms. von Largan. Do you have a copy of this report?
Those, and my understand, I was told that they maintain those particular records.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. I just wanted to make a remark, because you said earlier that I made the remark that I didn't know what the money was for. Well, back on August 30th, 2018, we got an email from the city manager, who was Jonathan Evans at the time, and he had sent this to us to let us know that we needed to pay the additional $35,000 for this. And when I read the email, I was very concerned, thinking, what are we doing? You know, and I read it through, and I thought, oh my God, I was just thoroughly amazed. So I, in turn, sent an email then to Jonathan, and again, I explained to him I didn't understand the regarding of the audit on the marina, and I was confused for the reason behind this based on comments from the Board of Commission. What exactly are we looking for, and what is the purpose? The marina has always run smoothly, and I don't remember a conversation during any of the budget meetings that would indicate anything else. The cost of $50,000 for this is also beyond me. What is going on? I just don't understand. And I asked him, I said, I will come in and talk with you on this so you can clarify me and explain exactly what are we doing. And I did tell him in this also that that I would come in and sit with him to get his help to clarify the matter. I did not come in to speak with the auditor a couple of weeks ago at the time when I was called. I didn't have any indication of a problem, and now I was very concerned. So that was my comments on the fact that I didn't understand the reasoning for the amount of money, and I was just very concerned over that.
Well, I paraphrased you. Yeah, that's pretty much what you said. Thank you, Commissioner.
Debbie Weinstein, 441. To get back to where we were before Commissioner Hodges got up with unrelated information, on the acknowledgement form on page 73. So my question is that the, and I just can't remember, but it would seem to me, is that the 1,800 pages on that itemized report from Carl? When was the 1,800 pages in the 7-inch binders received by the city to distribute to the individuals who were associated in any way, shape, or form, including the city manager, with the examination?
January 10th.
Pardon?
January 10th. Yeah, like I said, this report, I'm stunned that if this report does exist, the city clerk should have a copy of it. She has a copy. You do have a copy of the. You know the copy of the first. Yeah, I mean, you have a copy of the main one though, right? You're the keeper of public records. That's where it should be. Okay, thanks. Anybody else? All right, cool. Let's pop the board approval real quick. We've kind of discussed this already, and I'll just go over it real quick. The initial $15,000, and I'm not, Jonathan Evans had the right to spend that money any way he wished. I think it would have been nice if he was doing it for a fraud examination, as this turned out to be in the beginning. That was discussed with the board, especially when there was no fraud found at the marina. Even when Walter said when they did their initial investigation, which really didn't happen, he said nothing rose to the level of fraud for them to start a fraud investigation. Okay, so why this occurred, that's all right. He had the $15,000 to spend. I'm not going to even harp on that. The $35,000 came to the board for a vote. It passed 4-1. As Commissioner Hodges said, she was the only dissenting vote. Again, the discussion didn't last very long on it. So, that should raise, it was never discussed in the sunshine. So I don't know where everybody got their information from prior. Apparently there were emails sent out, obviously, what Nancy's telling me. But, that's a little bit of a concern to me as well. But does anybody have any questions on the board approval? Marina staff involvement. I believe that's the next one, right? Okay. This one's troubling too because, oh, absolutely, Jeff. Come on up.
I will say this, in looking back at the notes on that meeting that you're talking about, and I do think it's interesting that went through really quick. I'm not disagreeing with you here. However, Tom got up and spoke during that meeting and said, and called it a forensic audit. So somewhere, and I have to admit, I've dug through this too, somewhere it became a forensic examination or audit, and these terms were going around at that point in time. I don't know where it changed or how it got to that, but forensic was used long before. Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
The only thing that we have that's a signed document and notarized is on October 31st, it was called a fraud examination. So what it was called in August, I couldn't tell you. There, again, a lot of terms, and Tom's right, there was a lot of terms that were used interchangeably here where a lot of people probably didn't know the definitions of them, and it just kind of zipped around. So, but there's that one. Okay. Yes, Mr. What's that? Absolutely. Thank you.
Good news still exists. I'm not an expert, but I was at that meeting. And at that meeting, the commissioner that proposed the approval of the funds for the audit did not give any reasons for the audit and did not mention forensic or otherwise, just an audit. And that is what was approved, was the funds for an audit, not the funds for a forensic examination.
Okay, Marina staff involvement. I actually had invited a couple of the Marina staff here. I don't see them in the audience, so I'm going to. It's not speculation. I've spoken to them about this before, but their involvement. If you were at the Marina in 2016, 2017, there was kind of a big three. Dave Morsicano was the director. Megan was his right-hand person, and Brian Crabtree was the assistant Marina manager. Everything flew through them. Everything, all the financial reports went through them. All the inventory went through them. If you had a question about the Marina back in that time, those were the people you needed to ask. Okay. I asked them what their involvement, because, and I won't dig through the forensic report, but there is a couple of paragraphs in there where they talk about extensive interview time, extensive appointments with them to go over the different portions of their examination. I spoke to each of them. Dave Morsicano spoke to the examiners for 15 minutes prior to the audit beginning. He then got called in when the audit report was received to answer some questions and basically be accused of stealing. Megan was interrogated for about an hour and 30 minutes back in July. Never spoke to them again until the report came out and she was dragged to City Hall for an interview with the examiners. Brian Crabtree, again, who really handled the day-to-day operations of the marina because Dave was wearing a couple of hats. Brian Crabtree never spoke to the investigators in the beginning. He didn't speak to them until the audit was already published, okay? My question is, if you really wanted to do a thorough and extensive examination, which this turned into, this wasn't a numbers game anymore, folks. There weren't a whole lot of numbers in this thing. This was about management. This was about tone at the top. This was about the things they were doing and the procedures they were supposedly following. All of these accusations and all of these recommendations were made, and nowhere during that time were they talking to the people that ran the marina. I find that hard to believe. I find that hard to believe that that's a, you know, and this will go to the credibility, and we'll talk about that in a little bit of the people running the audit. And I was accused of, oh, if you don't like the results of the audit, you attack the credibility of the auditors. Well, I'm not just attacking the credibility of the auditors. There's a lot of attacking of credibility to go around here, but I find that hard to believe that you could do a proper exam. If your real goal was to help them, which I'm assuming what the real goal was, because I'll tell you what, there's nobody in this room that can tell me what it is, because at the beginning it seemed like they were looking for somebody that was stealing money. But then this report clears everybody is stealing money, and then starts giving, then an auditing company starts giving managerial advice to a marina when nobody's ever worked at a marina, and then they don't even talk to the people that are there. Okay? I just thought I'd bring that up. I don't know if that's really a subject for debate. Tom, if you'd like to speak, sure.
Tom Edwards, a resident. So in reading the report, I saw that it had to be more than a 15-minute interview that they did with Dave Masacano, because they talked about inventory control, they talked about wet slips and dry storage and things like that. There's there's another part here I wanted to show that I know there was at least a second interview with him just in reading the report. I thought there was an
initial one, and then there was one when the auditor came up with the information. So there was an initial report when they started, yeah, and then they talked to him afterwards.
No, there was a second time at least that.
Well, we're going on the auditor's words. I'm going on Captain Marsicano, who was a certified marina manager.
Well, here on page 9 of the report, it says Mr. Marsicano stated that there may be as many as 5 non-paying customers in the dry storage area. I don't know how some of this detail can come out in 15 minutes. No, this is on page 9 of the report. Well, again, it's in the 15-minute report. The other thing, Mr. Marsicano, I think, was out on FMLE leave for quite a while during that time. Maybe that's why he wasn't interviewed, because he was out on FMLA. Yeah, in December after the report was already delivered the first time. Okay.
Thank you. Debbie Weinstein, 441 129th. Once again, you've just used the word stole. And I do find that offensive, and you can roll your eyes if you want to, really, Commissioner, but I find that offensive that you would either try to soil that on any employee, any person at all, because you're the only person that used it. And I would think that it would be more appropriate for this meeting and for anybody listening to it for you not to speculate and use that term. Thank you.
Once again, this was brought up in a previous meeting, and impugning the character of Mr. Marsicano, okay? I'm bringing it up again because it was brought up in a meeting, and I'm trying to diffuse that comment, okay? But you can also check the Beach Beacon, excuse me? Okay, you're trying to diffuse it? Good, well, that's great, then we're both on the same page. I'm also gonna just turn you to the Beach Beacon article, which isn't in this thing, but the title of the Beach Beacon article, Madeira Beach Marina Audit finds losses of over $500,000. What does that say to you? That means there ain't any money there, man. That means there's $500,000, poof, gone. Okay? That's what it says. To me, that's what it says. I read it quickly.
Beach Beacon said 500, actually, Commissioner, it was the Beach Beacon who on January 31st said $550,000, and it was the Tampa Bay Times on February the 1st that said losses over $500,000, according to the newspaper articles right here.
Yeah, okay. They both wrote off the same thing. This is, I stand corrected. This is from the Times. Madeira Beach Marina audit finds losses over $500,000. Wasn't an audit. They didn't lose $500,000. Thank you. Commissioner Price.
Helen Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue in the beautiful city of Madeira Beach. In looking at the list of people that were interviewed, who the auditors say they interviewed, page 8 of 87 in your packet, I find it kind of interesting that every commissioner was interviewed except Nancy Hodges, who voted not to give them the money to, I mean, why would you interview Debbie Weinstein, they have the name Dave Douthert, I guess that meant John, and Nancy Oakley, and not interview Nancy Hodges? Just, I don't know, just. And Clara, you were interviewed, apparently, for this.
I was not interviewed at all. I was, after the audit was completed, Mr. Evans said that he would like to keep it in a draft form and wanted me to certify certain research and certify certain statements from the auditor. So they maintained it in a draft form until that got done, and then they released it again. And I had never seen, I've asked for the first release, and those audit documents are maintained by the finance department. I never got a copy of that.
Did the auditors ever come in and talk to you about the goings
No,
on
ma'am.
at the marina?
No, ma'am.
Interesting.
No, ma'am.
Quick question of Commissioner Hodges. I thought I heard you say when you were referring to the emails back and forth with Jonathan Evans, you said something about you were contacted by the auditors, or whatever we want to call them, by the investigators, something about you were contacted but you didn't have a meeting? You want to, I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
This paper towel.
Nancy Hodges. The question that was asked was I invited to talk with the auditors? The answer that I received, I gave them was no. I did not speak with the auditors. At the time we had the group from CARF here doing our books, I didn't know this was an auditor for the marina. If I would have known, I would have come on in to speak with them. But I was not told that. I was just told the auditors are here. Do you want to talk to them? And that was the question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else on that? All right, let's roll down. I think we did skip over something, the delivery to the public. The only thing I want to bring up with that was, I don't know if any of you were here when they actually unveiled this report. It was a very peculiar meeting. We were given a piece of paper, and we were allowed to ask one question, no follow-up questions, and we weren't even allowed to ask the question ourselves. It had to be read out loud. It left a lot to the imagination. But the one thing that was said, thank you, Patty. The one thing that was said, it was confirmed that the reason that this audit took place was because of John Hauser and because of this and because of what he told Walter and how this ongoing problem needed to be solved and this and the other thing. But, I don't know if you saw the meeting. If anybody wants to discuss that, I didn't really think that that was a real good way to tell the public about this, especially with as much information that was in it, but just my opinion, okay? So I'll stick with the facts here. Let's go on to the press release. Oh, absolutely, Jeff, come on. I'd have gotten your own table if you needed it, man.
Yeah, I did need my own table. So on this release of this information, everybody signing for it, it said that they all had a chance to be able to dispute, refute, or substantiate any and all of the information contained in the report. And there's two people that are listed as refuting that. Where is that information?
Going on. Yeah.
Nobody has a copy of whatever was refuted.
No. I don't know. Hold on. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I've never seen any of the refuting, because basically, I guess when it was delivered on the 10th, they were supposed to go through and make corrections. So whether or not those corrections were made and then the report was distributed, so that wouldn't be administered. But if they weren't, then I would really like to know what those disputes were. That's good. That's really.
And I mean, personally, I think it's a shame that Dave didn't refute a lot of this. I really kind of fall over when I think about that. I don't know the man. I don't know anything about this. I mean, to me, when I look at this report, and this has got to be, I mean, just if you're Joe anybody, and I don't know you any more than I know Dave, okay, is this just looks sloppy. I don't think that you can use fraud, and I don't think that you can use anything else. You can say it's sloppy, and there's a lot of money that's revenue missed. I would agree with that. I hate that five-letter word "stole" that's being used. I hate
Right, me too. And that was my major contention. I'll be the first one to tell you. I mean, looking through the report, and we'll get to that in a minute. But looking through the report, I'll completely concede that this is the opinion of the auditor. I mean, this is their opinion on how things went through. Now, we're also talking about running a marina. We're not talking about running a biotech, brain surgery lab either, right? So it's a little loose, no question about it. And I just think the atmosphere is conducive to that. But we're also talking about, and we'll get to where we are today in comparison to where we were before, and we can kind of do some judgment there. But yeah, I'll agree that this is the opinion of the auditor. Now, we'll get to the credibility in a minute too. I mean, that's what we're going to have to talk about. But thank you for that, Bob.
So I'm sorry to go back to this. Bob Preston, 425 South Bay Shore. To the October 31st report. We should be able to resolve this in about 5 minutes. The city manager is sitting right there. Where's the finance director? Is he working today? Does he have a phone? Call him and ask him where this report is. So, but I understand he's not resigned until effective the 29th. Does that mean he doesn't respond to your direction? No, it's okay. I just.
He's not comfortable answering anything, so that's not, he was asked directly where this report is, and he didn't have any. He first said he didn't have any recollection of even signing this first or seeing this report. So, I doubt we're going to get any more than that. And, I mean, we can dig if we want, but I don't think we're going to. I think that's an ended hole. So, all right. Anybody else on that? Cool. Let's press forward. Of all the things that in this thing, this press release is what really prompted me and got me probably the most upset, okay? The only things that come out of the city should be proofread. They should be factual. Because, most of our newspapers, I mean, we're not, we're a little town, beach town. Most of our newspapers are going to report what we give to them. Somebody said, oh, well, Wayne Ayers was given a copy of the examination. Well, I'm pretty sure that he didn't delve through 1,000 pages of that report to come up with his story, or did Sheila when she wrote her piece for the Times. And if you have read their reports, they certainly look a lot like what our press release looks like. The inconsistencies and the outright errors in our press release are terrible, terrible. And all I've ever asked, so, I've gotten questioned about a bunch of things, about apologies and this, that, and the other thing. All I've ever asked for from day one is that we put out a retraction for this press release. The press release is inaccurate. I'll walk you through each, on page 76, I'll be happy to walk you through it. Some of it we've already talked about. Some of it we already know is not true. Heck, the title of it's not correct, okay? But as you walk through it, you're going to see major, major, major fabrications, okay? Major things that we can't prove. If we put out a press release, we should be able to substantiate everything in it and not just say, oh, well, that's what it said in the report. No. I mean, we should have gone through this and been able to talk about it a little bit more in depth. So let's run through it. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. If anybody saw the last meeting, I spent a great deal of time on it, and Walter didn't really have a whole lot of answers. But again, the beginning of it, the marina audit, it wasn't a marina audit, so let's get that changed. Detailed examination, so changes from an audit to an examination right in the first paragraph. The report shows estimated marina losses totaling more than $550,000. The marina in fiscal year 2018 made $150,000, and that's with them being charged $50,000 for their own audit, okay? So that statement is inaccurate. The year before they made money, and the year before that they made money. The marina never lost $550,000. Did they lose potential revenue of that? Sure, maybe. But I'll tell you what. You go down to the rec center when I was running it, and if I had 5 people in a Zumba class and it could fit 30, is that potential lost revenue too? Yeah, technically it is. If you take a picture, and what they did, if you guys know how this audit went, they took a drone picture of the boat slips, and if the boat slip was empty, they clocked that as a revenue loss. Somebody could have been out fishing. I mean, that's how elementary some of this stuff was. So, again, take it for what it's worth, but nobody lost $550,000, okay? Hold on, let me just, you want to talk on that topic? Sure.
So one of the things that we heard is that their Board of Commissioners may at one point have authorized fuel discounts, and the auditors didn't find anything, and the clerk had searched back to 2011 forward, did not find any discounts. I made a request yesterday. The clerk has gone back to 1965, and there are no fuel discounts that she could find that the commission authorized. And here's a memo that she has written to that effect. So, if that's the case, then yes, we were not collecting as much money as we should have on fuel, and therefore the city didn't see that revenue, which amounted to like $325,000 to $330,000. So when you're talking about 550, yes, that's a good portion of it, and it very well could be true. Okay?
The current numbers, Tom. You're going to love those. And by the way, the discounts are already back in action, and they have been for quite some time.
Yes.
They've been approved.
After the audit, after this financial examination,
They changed them. They took away the discounts. And then after they saw what the marina numbers were looking like, they installed them right away. They did put them back, right? So we can hem and haw about that all day long. But discounts actually help generate revenue.
Again, the examiners, when they come in, they look at all the records, they look at internal controls and how money moves from one part through the system, how people collect money, how it's handled, how it's dispersed. They look at, that's what they do, and that's what auditors do, examiners do. I mean, you've been through this, you know that. So, they're reporting what they found, that they did not find that discounts had been authorized, and therefore there was money that could have been generated and coming to the city that was not. Okay, thank you.
Why not just ask the guy running the marina why there were discounts that were established by him? And if you're going to tell me, if you're going to sit here and tell me, and you can, that these were never authorized, I'm going to say, I'm going to
I
totally
wish-
concede
I
to you
wish that-
they weren't filed with the clerk at some point.
I wish Dave Marshall had taken the time to go ahead and...
Oh, stop.
and
They didn't go to him. They were doing the audit.
No, I'm talking about at the end where he could have refuted those particular points on the audit, and he chose not to. That's my only point, is
I appreciate
he
that.
had time to go ahead and bring those points up, and it wasn't done.
I mean, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt here. If you're getting billy clubbed over the head by people that didn't even take the time to talk to you during the examination, all they had to do was ask a couple of questions. They could ask questions about boat slips. I'll tell you what, there's probably answers that Dave could give you about boat slips that you go, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you only ran the marina for 17 years? You only have your certified marina manager? And we're taking the word over two guys that, that's interesting. And look at this, on cue, Dave Morsicano is walking in the door. Holy crow, how good is that? How about that? Now we'll be able to talk to him about it. Go ahead, Maureen.
So with the idea that there were discounts, and I was at that meeting when it was presented, and I know that Helen made comments about prior discounts going back many, many years. My whole thought with that is that discounts may have been a matter of not having been put into procedure by the commission, and discounts may have been the regular operations. But if you don't have a standard procedure, if you randomly, and I've talked to many boaters, there never was a question of, are you a resident? Are you a Boat US? Are you anything? It could change from day to day, from time to time. People were just given discounts. And none of those discounts were reflected in the records. And I think that is, again, going back to what the auditors found, and I disagree with your opinion that an auditor has to run a marina to be able to tell you how to operationally manage an operation. I'm sure that the people who audit you and your store don't run the store, but they can still do the audit or the examination. So what I'm saying is that maybe that wasn't a written procedure. His point is made. It wasn't there from prior commissions. But going forward, why wasn't there any record keeping? Why wasn't there ever any substantiation of who gets a discount and who doesn't, and how is it applied? And then reflect that in the records, and you wouldn't be sitting here questioning whether that was lost income or not. If it's just an arbitrary, and any person who's there working has the opportunity to discount or not, that's not good record keeping, and nor is it reflecting the right way to manage a business.
Talking about my business. When I said it earlier, my business, my auditors come in, they count the stuff in my store, they match it against my purchases. They don't give me managerial advice. So they're two different. That was an audit. It's just a clear inventory audit. Okay, so it's a totally different thing than when you ask me about questioning you don't have to run a marina to be able to give managerial advice for a marina. They're talking about very specific stuff here, Doreen. I mean, if you look at this report, it's very specific,
Okay.
right? So, I mean, who are we gonna put our faith in? A certified marina manager who's been running the place for 17 years, or a former deputy sheriff and a bean counter? I mean, that's what the kid was. He was an auditor. He was a CPA. So those are the two people that ran this investigation, and they were giving managerial advice to us on how to run a marina. I don't know. Unless are you done?
Well, I wasn't entirely done, because I also think that you mentioned and you brought up inventory. I mean, the auditor's examiner's investigation indicated that we didn't have inventory control. So again, this isn't that somebody's doing something improper, that I won't use the word that we've all been saying we don't want to discuss. The point is that there could have been things that could have been changed, and the opportunity, had Dave been here, those things could have been corrected and they could have moved forward. And why are we back to digging this up today?
That before, okay? Because nobody let me talk about it a year ago. Mr. Marsicano, you have earned the right to speak here at any time you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. My name's Dave Marsicana, 5227 104th Way North, St. Pete, Florida, 33708, just over the bridge. A couple of things, and I don't have the opportunity to spend all afternoon with you guys. I have the job I have to do. I hear all these comments about the fuel discounts, and I would just like to go back to talk about when we built the new marina, when we built the new ship store. One of the first things I did when I put in the new fuel system and the new fuel tanks was inventory control. It's everybody's biggest concern. I don't want anything going out the door. So we went and bought a system called Scribble Software. Okay, that's our complete point-of-sale system. Every single day since 2011, there is a Z-tape that's printed at the end of the day and comes over to the finance department over here, because all we merely do is count, audit, bring the money over here. The Z-tape indicates exactly how many Boat US discounts were given that day, exactly how much commercial discounts were given that day, exactly how many over 50-gallon discounts were given that day. I think that was it. I know you all have changed them. I think you give more discounts now than you used to, but all those things are absolutely recorded in every sale and passed on to the finance department. Inventory control, another thing that came with that system. We're an enterprise fund, the marina, sanitation. We are there to, excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm just.
We were talking about this a little earlier before you had walked in.
I just walked into the fuel thing and just.
That was kind of good timing.
There's a full report that is sent over.
Yeah, right. And prior to Mr. Pierce being here, and you working with Mr. Tenaglia, and you probably worked with
That report
finance directors.
That report started back with not Mr. Crabtree's mother, but that report started with Monica Mitchell, who's now at the city of Clearwater.
I remember anybody coming to you and saying, "Oh my gosh, this doesn't work. There's a real we're not,
Absolutely
we have
not.
discrepancies. We have nothing."
No.
Okay. So all these years went
That
by.
was the
and
way we did business.
Right, and you had plenty of occasions to talk to John Hauser, right? I mean, I know I did.
John Hauser, the last time I talked to him was 2 years ago when he came and we stuck the tanks together.
Okay.
But that's not.
And that's when Vince used to come with him and come right to your fuel docks and
right.
work with you. Okay.
Can we move on to the 25 recommendations real quick that talks about my sloppy management so I can run through that? I've got a young son at the rec center that I need to pick up.
He does have to go. Does anybody mind if we jump ahead real quick? Okay, we're not going to have him long.
I've got a young guy at the rec, and I don't have time to.
All right.
You have it. I mean, I've been working all day.
I think is there a report on the back there, Dave?
So the system passwords that they that they refer to in this is the password that sits at the cash register. And that's the password because, have you ever been to our place? A lot of times there's 3 people behind the cash register, different all the time. So we weren't logging in and out every time. That was something we could have improved. I think they did. There's still a dual set of books running. There's always been a dual set of books because we run fuel software. And so we run through Scribble software, which then that financial work goes to the finance department. And from what the finance department does from there to put it into whatever this becomes in the bank, we just bring it there. Moving on to the gate codes. I'm not going to give that any, I'm going to comment. I think the reason everybody knows we haven't changed any kind of gate codes around there is we were getting ready to rip the gate down. I'll move on from that. The surveillance codes, I have, I don't anymore, but somewhere there's absolutely quotes going back to 2012 for surveillance cameras that I was continuously turned down for, year after year after year, because we had no money, kind of like the garbage truck, kind of like a lot of other stuff. So gate access, gates being closed every night at Public Works Department. Once again, that's just not simply true. Marina agreements, all of our revocable use agreements, and they're a revocable use agreement for a reason. You don't want to have a lease or anything that says the word lease when you have or involved with boaters. The dry storage number, spaces, and numbering, I don't think I really need to go much further into that, considering what we were trying to get accomplished. And once again, guys, I resigned before this report came out. I didn't resign because of this report. I resigned because I was unable to do my job. They made it unable for me to do my job. The wet slip numbering and the availability, the numbers rubbed off, but I think the boys did finally fix it. Customer invoice reviews. Late fee assessments. As I tell everybody, and as I tell all of my employees, even the people that work for me now, we're in the disposable income business, okay? I try to get the fees, and if they go through and pay the fee by the 25th of the month, I don't hit them in the head with a baseball bat. It's disposable income business we're in. We tried to help them with that. That was something that was brought on by the prior administration. Once again, nothing to do with me. Transient rental rates. I always correct. I always charge the correct amount. One of the guys might not have been. That's not a good answer for that. I can't believe where there's that much of a inconsistent.
I think it even says customers may have been underbilled.
Right. Periodic physical counts. There's no oversight by the finance department. At one point, I counted the inventory every 30 days. I did that for 3 years. And then we went to 6 months, and then finally we got to once a year. Fuel delivery confirmation. All of our deliveries are absolutely confirmed every time. It's very important we make sure the gasoline goes in the gas, the diesel goes in the diesel. We've had the opposite happen. They are confirmed. The tickets come over to the finance department, approved by me. When it gets to finance, I don't know where it goes from there. Fuel inventory and fuel inventory reconciliations. The fuel reconciliation is done by one of the best systems in the whole industry. I was in Isle Morada on Monday. They're running Scribble software. City of Clearwater, all over the world. That's Scribble is Scribble. You want to write that down? Scribble software, Marina thing. Fuel pump is not capable of accepting prepayments, and they're right. Those are a lot of other CPIs and issues we would have loved to have done, but got to get approval. Interfund transfers, there's currently no formal process. That's just simply untrue. We were doing interfund transfers. Sales on account. The marina appears. that. Once again, I didn't see that going on. Boat launch receipts. I believe that's referring to us not chasing down every single person that comes and put their boats in. But quite simply, there's just some folks that come and put their boats in and don't pay their rent. And, you know, I think it's $3 now. I don't know if the sheriff's worth it.
Or we had a guy just standing there.
You got to understand, we're running this whole property
$3, right?
with 4 full-time guys and 1 part-time guy. I'm a butt in the seat. I'm not the director, not Monday through Friday. I work. You work weekends, you work holidays, that's part of the deal. Boats launch receipts, I know they all get them. They're supposed to. Purchase orders or requisitions or after an invoice has been received. Well, that happens when you buy stuff on the weekends. Fuel, other stuff like that. That's going to happen. Ship store sales and inventory. We keep extremely good track of it. I felt like we were always striving to do better. We could have definitely did better than that. Matter of fact, I talk to my favorite 7-Eleven guy occasionally about it. Inventory counts. Once again, we're, I think, beaten up on something I've already discussed. Employee purchases of fuel, which is probably the only thing they purchase. And let's say that I think that I have been out recreationally when I worked for the city of Madeira Beach the last 2 years, twice. And I promise you, y'all didn't pay for the fuel. All that fuel, and even the fuel that Brian Crabtree went ahead and paid for, and I wish he wouldn't have paid for it because it's the fuel that he had to put in his personal boat to pull the barge out on the 4th of July with me hip-toeing it. But they beat him on him so bad, he went ahead and paid it.
Hey, Dave,
That's the employee purchases there.
Before you go any further, you know, as you read these things too, and I know some other people probably have some questions, if you've been looking at the effects as Dave's been going through this, there's a lot of sales may not be properly, staff should, may be paid. What kind of report is? It appears that. Boy, that's just a lot of fluff. That's a lot of speculation. Give me a report that says this is what's happening. Here's the effect. Here's the result. You know, thank you, Dave, for going through those.
I resigned from this city because the other administration wouldn't let my job, and then you guys are continually trying to destroy me with crap.
Sure, I think you already
I
started
just
it,
did.
but
Fuel discounts, once again, since 2000, and actually before that, every single discount, commercial, Boat US, if you buy over 50 gallons, you understand. It's recorded. We have proper paperwork on file. If you, Tom, this is the alteration I give. Okay, Chief, this is the operation. This is what I do. Everybody that's got a Boat US account, they get a discount automatically.
Get the mic. Yeah.
I'm sorry, so does CETO. I just hate the accusation.
I think what he's asking
if
is
somebody was at the boat ramp for an hour.
He's just asking about the approval. Where did you get the approval?
Oh, the approval's been in place since we started with Paula Cohen and Jim Madden. It was Jim Madden and Paula. Jim Madden hired Paula Cohen from the city of Gulfport. And when we hired Jim and Paula, they hired me. And that is one of the things that Paula introduced when we took over the new marina was a commercial discount and over 50-gallon discount. And then the, I'm sorry, what's the? Boat US. Now, if somebody didn't have their Boat US card and they were waiting at the boat ramp for 30 minutes and the guy in front of him was screaming at him, did I give him a nickel off a gallon? Maybe I did.
The question is that clerks checked back 1965 and hasn't found any documentation where the Board of Commissioners approved fuel discounts, and it's not in your fee schedule book for the city. That's my question.
It was in the fee schedule book. I know when Vince was here, it was in the fee schedule book. It may have been pulled out of the fee schedule book at some point, but if we can go back and rattle the trees from
I pulled
2000.
the number of them, and she
Well,
has
sir,
mine.
if you're accusing me of
No,
not
I'm not.
telling the truth, you're
No,
wrong.
No. I think, and
I'm just saying that
right.
the clerk has told me, and
Qu-
I didn't come up with this on my own.
Yeah,
Paula
that
Cohen,
should be the question.
Jim Madden,
Right.
and that's what originated the fuel discounts.
I'm just saying.
I
don't-
think
I
you
don't
all
see the
canceled.
No.
the fuel
Well,
discounts
hold on,
when it
guys.
happened.
Give me 1 second. I think the question is, did you decide arbitrarily to start giving fuel discounts? Your answer is no. Is he responsible for recording that with the city clerk? No, he's not. If his bosses did, right?
How did he get the information for fuel discounts?
That's okay.
That's all.
And I think what he explained is that was through Paula Cohen, and Paula
Right.
Cohen had hired you from Gulfport, who has their own marina. You guys instituted.
Yes.
But
It was approved by the board.
But it was
With
never-
the fee schedule. Absolutely, it was approved
It's
with the
not in
board.
fee schedules because she's put them online.
Correct.
And I started going through looking at them.
Well,
That is not in the fee schedule.
At some point, it was absolutely, and it had to have been in there. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you, okay?
Dave, hold on.
I didn't go-
It's a fair question, and I think
I agree.
Tom makes a good point. The problem is, I agree with you. I don't think it's really incumbent on you to make sure that the city clerk has taken the notes correctly from a meeting where this has been approved. That would be up. But like I said, now we're going back.
I don't think
how many
that's it
city
either,
managers
but
are we going
the
back?
discounts have been there. They've been advertised.
Every King of the Beach.
To
advertising.
insinuate
Marie had a question.
that we came up with these as and I believe y'all stopped doing them, and the direct effect was pretty.
Well, we'll get to those in a little bit. Yeah,
I'm going to go. I really.
I appreciate it. Do you have a question for Dave? You got a quick one.
Anne Marie, 425 150th. So my question is, and it just occurred to me sitting here listening.
Here, I'll scoot
Okay.
over. We got
My
it.
question is, just sitting here listening, is doesn't the marina run independent? I mean, they pay a mortgage to the city. So wouldn't the marina manager have the authority to do a discount? I'm just thinking.
God, you would hope so, right? Yeah.
Well, in
no,
some
I
sort of
agree.
way. I'm not saying that he wouldn't have to bring it up and it wouldn't have to be a topic, but I would think that if you're running independent, that there'd be some, and I just, okay.
Now, you would have to get it approved, but you're 1,000. I know where your head's at. You're
I know where my
1,000%
head is,
on.
right?
I mean, why would we not give a certified marina manager who knows how to operate something like this, who's running our business for us? Why would we not give him a little flexibility?
Well,
as
we're
far as
splitting
pricing?
hairs over when it was approved and when
Right.
it wasn't.
Well, it just wasn't in the notes.
Discounts have been
Right?
given for forever. You
Forever.
can split hairs over whether or not they verify
Filed it, right.
that you're a resident or that you have Boat US.
Correct.
And that is an issue you could bring up, but
The actual discounts themselves have been around so long to try to even determine where their origin was from is we're going to waste all of our time sitting here trying to do that. It just wasn't in the books.
I don't want to add to the issues by sitting here either, so I'm going to run. Yeah. Thank you all.
Jump back to the press release there in a second. Does anybody want to comment on the 25 recommendations or anything that Mr. Marsicano had to say? Sure, Doreen, come on.
I just took a quick look, and I know you were referring, Doug, to may and can and should, but what you were looking at were the reports that were basically the Exhibit A, which was, I believe, created by Jonathan Evans based on what was in the examination report. And if you looked at their item, they did specifically say that the gate codes are not changed unless there's an issue, and that recommendation should provide unique gate codes. So to say that it was loosey-goosey or willy-nilly about words like not definitive, and you said they were saying, well, it may be and should and could. That was what Jonathan's report was drilling down. If you look at what the actual CPA firm did, was they gave findings and the discrepancies and what that effect was, and then they made a recommendation. So I think that, again, I don't think we should be trying to discredit
Wait a minute.
was doing.
Well, I mean, you know what? While you're sitting there, hold on, because you're talking about these things, and I'm not questioning you, but I'd like you to look at these 25 items and talk to me and say, wow, that if we did that, that would really increase our revenue, or that would help our marina. These are flim-flam. Your gate
Your
codes?
opinion, they're flim.
I mean, what about in your opinion? Are they really good? I mean, what one of these changes has increased the revenue at the marina?
Well, I would think that poor inventory control would diminish.
Well, we're speculating that there was poor inventory control. Mr. Marsicano just sat here and said he uses the same software as every other marina in the country uses, and they never found any fraud. So how could the inventory control be off?
Fraud is different than not having a proper inventory control or not having the records. He's indicating that these slips of paper showed the discounts. And having sat through hours and hours and hours of budget meetings, there was never any indication that.
Promise you that the daily reports show every day. They show every discount that is available, that comes out of that number. Every
You've
day.
looked at those reports.
I've seen them. I mean, I've worked here. What's that? Every day.
You didn't work in the marina, so.
Of course not. It was a pretty small city. So I saw the reports. I saw the daily reports that came out before, and I've seen them since. They all have U.S. boat discount. They all have 50-gallon discount. They all have resident discount now. They all have these incorporated into the report that comes out. Okay? So inventory control, yes. Okay. But besides that, surveillance cameras, he just told you. They had a CIP for surveillance cameras forever. Okay? Are these things being implemented, and what is the result? That's what we got to talk about. This is a business. You can talk about all the other things you want to talk about. This is an enterprise fund. These people are running a business at the marina. Is the business of the marina better today than it was after spending $50,000 than it was in 2018? And we'll get to that conversation in a minute. That's the question that has to be answered today, and that's really the only thing that matters at the end of the day. Thank you. Jeff.
There was a couple of things that Jeff Brooks, 425 150th Avenue. So there was a couple of things that Dave said that I thought were really interesting and that really we should be paying attention to. And this happened at the last meeting too. So he said that, and that goes back to what I said. I wish he had refuted the report. Right. I think it's a crime that he never refuted the report. So during the last commission meeting, it was discussed, a lot of things were discussed about finances going down there and the approval to put somebody down there who is nothing but a bean counter so that this crap doesn't happen again. And admittedly, this current commission, I believe, has turned that down twice.
Actually, the previous commission turned it down the first time. The second time, they tried to hire somebody, but it was a $60,000 position. But let's remember something real quick, Jeff, and I know where you're going with this, and I agree with you and disagree with you at the same time.
Okay.
Problem is, 2-3 years ago, there was never, we've already discussed this. Tom's got a few emails over the course of, all the way back to 2016, of potential issues. And those are you kidding me? An internal email box, you should see the issues that come down the pike, right? And you solve them and you move on, right? Vince Tenaglia would probably sit here and say, there was never any issue with we never had a problem. We never had a communication problem. The softwares sometimes didn't link up because they were using different softwares. That's a given, and we all knew that. Munis did not agree with Scribble on a lot of things, right? So there was a little bit of a communication problem with this, but that's why those daily reports that I was just kind of talking to Doreen about, were important because they detailed everything. It was a printout that was given to the finance department every day. So to put a person that would only do that, Megan did that job, was the public works person, ran the marina, and was the finance person there, all under one salary. And to pay somebody $5 an hour more than you paid her for running 2 jobs, well, that seems like a lot. And I don't think that person, it's a $2.5 million marina. To have your own separate person down there, boy, that seems, for $60,000, seems like a lot.
This smells. This thing smells.
Right. I mean, and like I
that's-
said, we got a whole ton of people in finance. I mean, we could send somebody over there. Even Walter said during that meeting, we used to send a guy there every day. Why wasn't it fixed? If you found out about a problem of a communication problem 2 years ago, why wasn't anything put in place to fix that
I'm
communication?
not going to argue about you on that point.
No,
Until we have a system down there that everybody can agree on, why there isn't somebody down there permanently right now sitting there making sure that all of these forms and pieces are done. I mean, Dave sat here and admitted there are several things that, yes, he could improve upon. I don't think any manager that manages anything can tell you, I'm 100%. There's no way.
He's also gone almost 2 years.
Right. But the fact that he had requested cameras for 6 years
Never got him.
and never got them, and now you got people requesting, but you got people requesting help down there, and somewhere that's got to stop.
Well, no. The marina's not requesting help. Finance is requesting help to get the information to the marina. So I don't know. And that's a totally different. Yeah, the first job was turned down. Second time, they changed the name of it, got applications, hired somebody, until somebody said, wait a minute, you can't. And then what they did, they went and hired a consultant to teach the new marina director how to use it. For 2 months, there was somebody down there, a consultant down there, teaching him how to use the software that was there. Come on. We're running around in circles, right? Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. Anybody else on the 25 items? Cool. All right, let's go back to the press release here, please. I don't know. You know, that's a really good question, and that was going to be, Bob, maybe you can answer that. I've been told numerous times that we have completed the list of 25 items. The initial cost for it, right, the initial cost for it was about $150,000 to the taxpayers, a flat-out fee, okay, to implement, and then there was about $100,000 in maintenance of the 25 items. And I'm guessing, I'm speculating off the top of my head, but that was the number. That number was somewhere in that general vicinity. So the question then goes to you, Bob. I mean, are these implemented? Are these completely implemented, all 25 of them?
I'm a boater, and I'm down there frequently. And there's a couple of things that used to frustrate me when you used to go down there before. And number one was, didn't matter who you were, because the guy in front of me showed up, and I knew he was from Minnesota, okay, because he was fool enough to tell me so when we were standing there in line. He said it loud enough. He got a resident discount, a Boat US discount, a discount for pumping more than 50 gallons, and I'm sitting there going, why? And that's irritating. As a resident, that's irritating. And Dave owns that one, okay? I mean, and I don't know why that was going on, but it was, okay? Some of it I understand, because it encourages sales and encourages people to go down there. I get it. But it was that, the resident discount was frustrating. The Boat US discount just irritates the heck out of me. Who is that? And why do we care at the city of Madeira Beach that people get a Boat US discount? And you don't have to show, to this day, you don't have to show any proof that you have a Boat US discount because you are a member. None whatsoever. Secondly is, fuel may be sold with payment or stolen. You darn skippy it can. Because you can roll up there, turn that handle, somebody inside pushes it, and let me tell you something. Whether you pay for it or not, if you drape something over the numbers of that boat, you put a hat on, there's no security cameras, good luck. So that one always amazes me, and that's a lot of money every time we roll in there.
Anybody else on that? Okay, let's run through this, the press release. We already talked about the first paragraph before David come in. The second paragraph we've talked about pretty extensively. You can challenge me on whether John Hauser expressed these concerns. He certainly didn't come up and say he insisted that we have to do an audit, and it morphed into this. Secondly, the Director of Finance, Walter Pierce, to have the staff perform an on-site evaluation of operations at the marina. did not occur. That review revealed gaps in inventory. If the evaluation didn't occur, we wouldn't have known if there were gaps in inventory, record keeping, or more. Okay, so that whole second paragraph should be deleted. According to CRI's Glenn Gillier, a former deputy sheriff, which I got more respect for for law enforcement. Corey back there will tell you I love the cops around here. But let's be realistic. What Marina experience does he have? The majority of discrepancies were attributed to lack of training, mismanagement, and negligence. Okay, those are his opinions. Okay, we're going to take the deputy sheriff's opinion over a certified marina manager. That's your call. But his opinion, they did not raise to the level of criminal activity. Now there is something that I will give Glenn Gilliard credit for, that he is qualified to determine. Yes, sir.
In the statement that Brian Kincaid gave and Mr. Gilliard never said negligence.
I didn't.
In his state, yeah, I think you read.
Oh, no, it's right here in the
Yeah,
press release.
yeah, but.
Okay, so we want to cross that one out too?
He never said that
Okay,
when he gave his presentation.
okay. So there's another thing that's wrong in the press release. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up. So, yeah, I mean, we can look through that. And again, I'll give Mr. Gilliard the credit that those are his opinions, that it was because of this that these things occurred. Auditors spent 6 months reviewing the marina operations. Boy, that's a long time for a $2.5 million marina to be looking at stuff. Investigation included interviewing all of marina staff. We just kind of talked about how much they actually spoke to these guys, including the former marina manager and public works director. Again, 15 minutes prior, and he was brought in after the results were brought in, as well as numerous city officials. That count's not even correct because Clara was never spoken to, and she's on the list. The report cited lack of training on purchase policies, awareness, blah, 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 and the tone at the top set by management. That one's really tricky because if you didn't speak to these people, okay, now he never interviewed, he took some shots at Shane Crawford and he talked to Dave for 15 minutes prior to the report coming out, and you're going to assume that there was an issue with tone at the top. And then by the next paragraph in the report that we have, he's discussing how great the new city manager is and how the tone at the top has changed so much and it's so much better and these guys are going in the right direction. Look, that to me is disturbing, that we're taking recommendations and listening to advice about tone at the top from an auditor, an accountant, a CPA, and a former deputy sheriff, okay, who don't have any marina experience and any experience running in a marina, okay? Might be great guys. They did seem like it, but I got to be honest with you. I will take the credibility, and you could hear how passionate Mr. Marscano was about that list. He knew everything that they were talking about. Why didn't they ask him? If they really wanted credibility, why didn't they back up their statements by talking to the person in charge or even talking to the second in command or the third in command? Why not discuss this? We'll talk about tone at the top again in a minute. The report, the 25 recommendations, like I said, I've looked through these 25 recommendations. If this was designed as a management tool to help the marina make more money, it's failed miserably. The cost of the audit was $50,000. The Board of Commissioners approving. So they're even saying, the Board of Commissioners never approved the first $15,000. They just spent it. And the additional $35,000, we've already talked about it. It was after the initial examination revealed more work was needed. Although the fact is, we don't have the initial examination. Nobody has it. So again, another cross-off in here. And this one may be my favorite. Of that cost, approximately $27,000 has been recouped as an overpayment by the vendor, was reimbursed back to the city. We are thanking the auditors for finding a double payment that we made. And even in the report, it says it was already credited to our account. It was on our statement as a double payment. It was already stated as a credit. And we go as far to say, and I heard people say, whoa, well, with that $27,000 we found, this thing only cost us $23,000. No. We shouldn't be giving, and anyway, you want to take a shot at the marina on this? No, that is a finance issue. The marina doesn't pay bills. The marina hands over the bills. You just heard Dave talk about the process. He approves them, gives them to finance. Finance double pays a bill, and somebody has the audacity to throw this into a report claiming that this was a big score for the auditors. Guys, please, that's silly. This whole thing needs to be scratched. We need to put something together that's factual, and maybe the papers pick it up. If not, you know what? That's okay, but at least I'll be able to sleep at night knowing that we actually did our job and we corrected this thing. Because that's what's important, not whether we gave somebody the ability to sue the city or anything like that. Justice, and that's why I'm standing up here, Doreen. That's why I'm standing up here, because nobody was going to fight for these people. That commission and that administration went through people like, I mean, people got fired because they heard they were talking about them in a bar. I got fired because an insecure fire chief didn't like the direction of the rec center after I doubled revenues. I'm not going into well, I'm sorry, you can talk. Hold on. I'm just bringing up a point. This isn't political. It's not political. I'm talking about the administration, Doreen. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, what are we trying to accomplish? You said I shouldn't even discuss it. You said I don't even have the right to discuss it. That's what you told me? So I've been off task the whole time. I'm talking about what that administration did. That's what I'm talking about. It's not an, I mean, I can show you my letter, my firing letter if you'd like. It's not an opinion. Everything I talk about is fact. But you can, if you want to step up to the mic, you can, Doreen.
Thank you. I don't want to talk about your firing.
Okay, thank you. I'm done. I just wanted to bring it
So
up.
if you want to talk
from the
about the
poisonous
audit
tree. How about
report,
that?
I do have a couple of things. You've used the word many times that Walt insisted, that John Hauser, that he insisted that the concerns led to having the on-site evaluation. There is nowhere in here that the word insist appears. If I'm looking at this, what you're referring to, you're saying that this was the official report that was the press release. It says that the audit was performed and that the Wells, Hauser, and Schnatzel expressed concerns following their review. I know we're splitting hairs, but you've used repeatedly the word insisted.
I'll respond to you really quick. He speaking September 12, 1918. Walter Pierce is quoted. The audit was done at the insistence of Mr. Hauser. Okay? Mr. Hauser, did he insist, when I asked Mr. Hauser, he insisted. He also, on the same date, 9/12/18, he's quoted in the Beach Speak, and he recommended, these are quotes. This isn't Wayne going off on a tangent. These are quotes. He recommended a complete forensic audit to drill down on the issue. Direct quotes.
Okay. But you were reviewing this and you were wanting to go line by line and deleting things. We don't control what the Beacon, I'm sure that they're,
We handed them a press release that's incorrect, so we do control what they said.
what you're saying is not in here. It's not in here.
Thank you, Doreen. I
Okay.
appreciate it. I'm not trying to cut hairs with you. I was talking about facts.
Okay, and I want to go on the record as a resident saying that I appreciate your opinions and appreciate the opportunity for all of us to have our opinions, but I think that it's a little off task for you to discredit a deputy sheriff and who worked for the CRI firm, and to say that, you know, the auditors and these people, we should only believe our employees. We should only believe you as a commissioner. You've done the investigation. These people are professionals. They have accreditation and they have documentation. And to keep circling back, please don't snicker. I think that this is my time at the mic.
Credibility of a deputy. I didn't discredit the deputy sheriff. In fact, I gave him credit for the fact that he investigated that there was no fraud. I can't give him, can I give him credibility that he's a marina expert? Did he come up here and tell you that he's an expert at running a marina? No, he didn't say that. Did the kid that was up here, the CPA?
The CPA, he's a young man that has far more accreditation than any of us in this room. And I
Does he have any accreditation as a marina guy?
does that matter when you're a professional CPA?
He's doing a management assessment of a marina. Of course it has credibility.
Okay,
What are
so
you
I've
talking
never
about?
driven a boat, so therefore I couldn't possibly have an opinion.
I've never
if I were a
worked in a
professional.
zoo, and I'm not a koala bear. I know what you're talking about. But what I'm saying
I'm giving you my opinion.
I appreciate
that
your
I
opinion.
feel
I'm
that
giving
we
you the
should-
facts. That's what I'm giving you, Doreen.
No,
You don't
you're
want to.
forcing me to hear your facts. I'm saying
You're
that
forcing me to hear your opinion. I'm accepting it. I think it's great. You have an opinion. These are the facts. The facts are we don't trust a 17-year person that ran our marina built it and put together that was making money for the marina, for the city. It was making money. We did a hokey investigation to try to run them out of town.
Your opinion, and I still
Just sat here and he told us what happened.
and you're taking the word
Of
of
a 17-year veteran who's a certified marina manager and captain over the words of a CPA and a former deputy
Thank you.
sheriff.
You've certainly clarified that.
Thank you.
All of our residents.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad I cleared it up for you. Okay. Anybody else on the 25 examination points? Commissioner Weinstein.
Wow. Whoops. I'd just like to say, with Dave's remarks, your remarks, everybody's remarks, we have 1,800 pages of documentation. We had a binder that was 7 inches thick, and that additional 40-page summary of that forensic examination that was done in January 2019. It was presented to the entire community, the entire world. I believe their findings were totally factual. I think that we're trying to you're trying to do all these different things in this meeting. I don't know what you're really trying to do, and you haven't really made it very clear at all. I believe their findings were factual, and I don't think that anybody really believes that a national accounting and auditing firm is going to come to Madeira Beach, get $50,000, and then give us back an incomplete report or a report riddled with inaccuracies or ambiguities. I don't think that can happen. I think that CRI is among the top auditing firms or accounting firms in the United States. They, as of in 2019, they currently audited 19 of 67 Florida counties and over 40 cities, as well as the Pinellas County school system, and that's just in Florida. And this was per an article in the Tampa Bay Times on February the 1st, 2019. Nothing was improper. They reported things, newspapers reported things. I think the real reason, I guess, that I don't guess. I think the real reason that you wanted to have this town hall meeting was either just to discredit the auditors, which you've certainly tried to do a very good job of, or it's really because you really want Dave Marsicano back. And you really want Shane Crawford back, okay? Well, I remember in 2019 when we recruited applicants for the city manager and the public works director, and Commissioner Andrews and Commissioner Hodges were avidly recommending the rehire of Dave Marsicano and Shane Crawford. Who knows, you might even want to bring Travis Palladino back in something, even though he was never employed here. You just want to discredit the audit. Why do we want to go back to this period prior to this audit? It was a bad period in our history, and I do believe that the marina had...
You were on the board. You should know.
Pardon?
It was a very bad period. You were on the board. You should know. Here's my question.
Now, wait a minute.
Well, you haven't
I'd
asked
like
the
to
question.
finish,
You're just
please.
pontificating.
I'd like to finish because I'm not here to answer any questions, sir.
Okay. Well, no, you made a statement
but I
about
do
1,800
believe-
pages that were presented.
Okay,
My question to you is, of those 1,800 pages, Commissioner, you were on the board. You voted for $35,000 extra for a $50,000 audit. Of those 1,800 pages, please tell me which page helped the marina generate more revenue to make it a better marina.
I don't need to answer that, and I'm not going to.
Are you?
But I
are
think
you
that
being
I
walked? Are
think
you not
that
comfortable?
I know.
Thank you.
I looked at it a lot. I didn't read all 1,800 pages, but I certainly.
One example. What helped the marina become a better marina?
I'm not here to do that. I'm
Okay.
I'm
Thank you.
here
You're gonna talk
to
about-
say that I do not think that the reason for being here is really to discuss the marina. I think it's to discredit the audit, and I think it's because you really want Dave Marsicano back. I mean,
No, you
when he
said
was here.
Shane Crawford.
Now,
You
I
said
think
Shane
that maybe
Crawford. You
I
said
think that
Travis
may-
Palladino. Have you ever heard me sit on the dais and ask for any of these
I'm
people
not
to come back?
answering your questions. I'm allowed my own opinion also.
You can have
and
your
I only
opinion.
have
We're
3
talking
minutes, and
about
I only have 1 minute left.
You have 1
Okay?
minute left?
Maybe promises and commitments have been made by elected officials and even by staff that are still remained unfulfilled, and they're long overdue, and you want to erase what happened in the past. It's happened before. I'm sorry. You want to erase it. You want to rehire. I think that's why you called this meeting, and I appreciate being here anyway.
Nobody's, you sit here and you talk about me making up things as I go along. I have never sat up here and asked for Shane Crawford's rehire. I have never sat up here and what would Travis come back as? If Travis wanted to run for an office, he could come back. How could I get him back? I think you're stupid? No. Well, I mean, hopefully you're not coming back. That would be a real goal for the city. So thank you. God. Well, really? That wasn't a personal attack on me, Tom? Come on. That she was impugning me every damn sentence she came out of her mouth. So stop. Yeah, I get it. I'm supposed to be the adult. She can take shots at me. That's cool.
No. No. Okay. Helen Price, Happy Price, 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue here in beautiful Madeira Beach. I think everyone's asking, why talk about this? Why talk about this? In my case, I wanted to talk about it because it's an open wound. I agree with Commissioner Andrews. There's an injustice here. I think the auditors are good auditors. Unfortunately, this isn't an audit. This is, frankly, I think they did what they were told. First they went through, it was a fraud investigation. No fraud was found after 15,000. Then in August, they get another 35 to dig deeper, and they came up with suggestions. The suggestions are good. I don't think this was a complete waste of money. And it's not so much that it happened, it's how it happened. And that's why I wanted to talk about this. And here's my big question. Why did we put out a press release like this? Why? Did we put out a press release when the garbage truck gets into an accident and make our city look bad? No. You don't put out press releases that totally degrade our own city. If it was a public document, let the reporters look at it and report what they find. Why are we putting it out in an admittedly incorrect press release? This doesn't sound like anything. Let's just kill ourselves here. This is not what we should be doing. And we need to just calm down. I do think we're not going to get a retraction. We already know that. The paper is saying, nope, all I did was report what you told me. Everything we wrote was right. All we can do is just try to explain it or explain the feeling now. But that's what I'm thinking. I just don't know why we would put out a press release like this. And maybe we need to ask Mr. Pricer. Did he write this? Did Jonathan Evans write this on his way out? What was the purpose of it, except to embarrass our marina? I'm floored that this came out like it did. I really, really am.
One of the results of the examination is to improve on internal controls and make sure things run more efficiently and are accurately reported. And it will help when we have our auditor come in for our annual audit to make sure that everything flows better, and it will help better when we get accredited. So, a couple of things that came out was, in the report, it says a number of boat launches fees were posted as transient rental income. Marina customers were consistently overbilled. The marina, instead of paying $15, which included tax for that, people were paying $16.05. So they're being overbilled. Okay. There were 1,155 invoices which were not paid before the 15th of the month, and after that, I'm sorry.
The marina out?
No, for the rent. They're supposed to pay their storage fee by the 15th, right? And so only 129 were assessed. So they came up and said, well, we lost $33,000 on that. So, they're trying to go ahead and tighten down the paperwork, keep people from making mistakes on doing when they're hitting the cash register. We've already talked about the fuel discounts. Even measuring the gas, to me, would have seemed a simple thing, because I did this when I was in college, went ahead and delivered fuel up and down the beach here. So there's a meter when you go ahead and gas it. In some of the larger places, they go ahead and put a dipstick in, which is what they do at the marina. So you put a dipstick in, and they were measuring it to the closest inch. I think the recommendation was to go to the nearest eighth of an inch now, which might be making it more accurate. But you put it in the morning, and you put it in at the end of the day, and then when the guy comes to do it, you do the same thing. You put it in before he puts fuel in. You put it in after he does the fuel. You check the meter on his truck to make sure, and then you write those figures down and send it over. And there was a lack of consistency in doing that. So, I mean, there's procedures that need to be made so that we could better track the paperwork and make it easier for the auditor when he comes in on an annual basis.
Tom, I couldn't agree with you. Everything you're saying, again, I've agreed with everything in this report.
So that's the purpose. These guys come in, and they're not just bean cutters, but they do look at internal controls and procedures. And there is a difference between a regular auditor and one that specializes in internal controls and audits. And it's
Agree with you.
thing.
Agree.
So that's, now the other thing was, I was concerned about whether we violated our Florida Department of Environmental Protection permit, because, you know, it said that some things were moved around that we hadn't got a permit for, or that we had people on Dock B when you could only have it on Dock A. That was one of the things that concerned me, is I don't want that permit to be removed or to get fined by the Department of Environment.
That was a pretty big grant.
So, I mean,
You're right.
that's one of the things they found. So that's just a couple things. I mean, I was over at the marina today. I went over there, and it certainly looks better organized. You got lines, you got numbers, you know, where boats, before, years ago, it looked kind of helter-skelter in there.
My question always is going to be, and I'll turn it around.
So, well, I know where you're going with this.
Why didn't they ask these guys about this stuff while it was going on so they could get direct answers,
But then
have a proper report?
you need to have CRI come in and have.
They need to explain it.
have
You're, I mean, to
presentation.
get $50,000 to
Again,
do
I
that.
wish,
and
I wish,
not have-
I wish Mr. Marsicano had remained longer, because I had several additional questions. But the big one was the fuel. I wanted to try and get that point out, just so we could say, yeah, I don't disagree that he might have been told, but it was not in the published fee schedule. So, I mean, it was just
Appreciate
some
it.
things I just wanted to
And
get
Tom,
out.
again, we're not disagreeing. There were probably some control issues, and there were probably some things that weren't done correctly, according to those guys. So, you know, that's kind of where we'll leave it. And let's close out on this. I know we've been here for a while. The last issue is the results. Oh, absolutely. Come on, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to answer one question about why we're here. So I can tell you that I personally contacted Doug and said, after the last meeting, would you please do this? And for the most part of this meeting, I think it's gone fairly straightforward. I absolutely, positively despise the not nice. I do wish, I know you don't get paid much here, I get it. And sitting here and taking a pop shot from her is not fun. And I'm just as guilty of doing what you just did with her. I also wish that you wouldn't do that. I wish we all would stop doing that in this city. I really do. I also agree 100% with you that a correction should be done. Because when you read through that, it is not correct. It is not nice. And I agree 100% with Happy about why in God's green earth did that ever come out in that manner from this city. It doesn't make any sense. I will say this, and this is where you and I probably disagree, is that your question of which item made us be more efficient. I got to tell you, when I read through these 25, I get that some of them you can split hairs on. But Dave, as Dave sat here, and like I said before, I wish he'd stuck around, because I think if he'd refuted, I don't know that we would be where we're at today. I really do. But even to Dave's, he said, there are things here, but it's obvious we haven't given that marina the tools either. Okay.
that's a perfect segue to what we're talking about. So and maybe I did use the word efficient. I apologize. My thought is the idea of this examination. Okay, the whole concept was that something was screwy going on at the marina. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in this auditing group, which it is an auditing group. It wasn't an audit, but it was an auditing group to come in and make recommendations to make our marina more profitable and better. Because if it wasn't there to make it more profitable, then it's a business unit. Why would we make recommendations to just a separate entity, right, or a service industry? This was a business. So the idea was, hey, let's put some things into place so that we make this place run more efficiently so it can produce more revenue, okay? So now we can get to the results, okay, because there's enough time passed from the time that this was done until where we are now, okay? So in fiscal year 20, please turn to page 60, please, I'm sorry. And if you have a calculator on your phone, you might want to help me with the math, but I think I can walk us through this. So in fiscal year 2018, which was Dave's last full year here, okay, the marina did $2.6 million in revenue, okay, $2.6+ million in revenue, okay? Currently, the marina revenue through 8 months of the year, through May 31st, okay, for anybody who doesn't know, fiscal years run from October 1st to September 30th, okay? So 8 months has transpired. And yes, there was COVID, but the truth is we were actually selling a lot of gas during COVID. We're not, that wasn't where we're behind. The marina revenues, after 8 months, are 1.441. We'll leave out these boat rent. You can even tack those on. 1.459, 264.06. That's 8 months, okay? That translates into a little over $2.1 million, okay? The marina in 2018 did $2.6 million. The marina on course, and I'm not talking about, hey, that's 1 month worth of traffic coming through here. The marina's on course to do $2.1 million. That's after doing a $50,000 examination to try to help the efficiency and improve the operations at the marina so we can do what? Make more money, or else there's no reason to spend $50,000, okay? That's the point at the end of this. From and I'm not talking about from 2011 to now. I'm talking about 2 years ago when we had a professional certified marina manager in place, okay, with 17 years experience, 2.6 and change. Today, we're on pace after 8 months to do 2.1 million. The marina's hemorrhaging money, and we don't have, I don't know, is there a plan in place to get this money back? It looks like a lot of it is coming from commercial diesel, okay? That's where it looks like. Tom, please.
I think the virus might have
Doesn't have anything to do with it, Tom.
I think it does. I mean, just don't look at our figures. I think you need to look at maybe 3 other marinas in the area and see if their income is down for this year because of that. I think that would give you a better snapshot. Yeah. I know a lot of times we look at Gulfport because of their similar size and stuff, but I think you look at Gulfport and look at a couple others and check to see if their income is down for the year, and that may have a bearing. But I think it's significant to take a look at that instead of making just a statement like that.
I understand. And no, I'm just a numbers guy. Remember, I'm a numbers nerd.
I'm a numbers guy, too.
Here's my question to you. So when I presented this at the last meeting, we only had 6 months' worth of numbers that were available. And it was the same projection, around 2.1 million. And when I said, well, what's going on? And they went to COVID. And March 31st, we had we were closed 4 days. I think we closed down the marina, and we kept the gas pumps open, but we closed down the marina around March 26th, okay? And they brought up that we didn't have a King of the Beach. Well, that's not true, because from October 1st to March 31st, yes, we did have a King of the Beach. And so we had all the revenue from that. And yes, we did have the Wild West tournament. And yes, one thing they didn't put in the thing that I gave to them was gas prices are a little lower, okay? So there's going to be a little reflection from there. But for the first 6 months of the year, there really wasn't a whole lot of, hey, you know, the marinas were operating in every business in town, and I'm not using mine as a bellwether, but you can look at any business in town. We were having great years up until April.
Well, yeah. And the other thing is I don't know what your gas prices are in relation to other marinas and what kind of margins you're having. Are you doing 40% above the price that you get it so that you do make a reasonable return? but at the same time, you're competitive with the other groups too. So that's just something to take a look at.
Right. No, and I agree with you. I'm giving you straight facts and straight numbers, and those should be alarming to everybody in the room, right? I mean, if we go from 2.6 million 2 years ago to 2.1 million, that should scare you as a taxpayer, because guess what? That means just judging by how much profit the marina makes, and it's not a whole lot, maybe 100,000, 150,000, that's going to mean we're operating at a loss at the marina. That's not a good thing.
I understand.
Thank you.
I think we need to find
We can look.
surrounding marinas.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to look into that. Thank you. Bob.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bay Shore. I think when you look at the history of this fraud investigation, which it is, which they did, it was directed to try to find something. And if you know, I worked for some different cities. If they didn't like the results that came back, they would go get somebody else to do the same thing, come up with the results that they wanted. So I truly believe that this audit or fraud investigation came back with as much as it could to satisfy the direction from the city manager and the finance director. So I don't think it was just an open one. When they came back with the first report, which nobody knows where it is, it probably didn't have enough. That's why they wanted $35,000 more to try to really find something bad. And nothing really bad was found. There's some discrepancies. There's some things that could be improved on. Any of that could have been done in-house, these improvements, many of which had been asked for within the marina itself. Just one note on the fishing, or on the slip rents. I spent about 42 years in Alaska and on the coast in a really big marina. And we had fishermen that took up a lot of those spaces. We had people from out of town that took up those spaces in those slips. And what they ended up doing is, there was a lot of the fishermen, they didn't make their money this month, or they didn't whatever, so no, they didn't pay on time. So they would end up paying maybe 2 or 3 months later what they owed for being in there. If they kick them out, they lose long-term revenue. So what they would do is they would pay what they owed, and they would ask forgiveness, and usually it was council there, would forgive the late fees because they paid it. And I assume this, we all know what that means, but if the guy was late, maybe even 2 months, but he ended up paying it, and he's still going to be there, and he's going to pay the following month and the following month, we're not going to knock him in the head for that late fee. And I understand that that's a judgment, but they did this where I came from, in Alaska, in that marina. The other thing is, as far as we lost revenue, and we still lost people that will probably never come back because of canceling the fuel discounts when this commission did that. Because they pulled up, they gassed up, and figuring they were going to get a discount on the 50 gallons or the 150 gallons that they put in, and they said, "No, sorry, you don't get that anymore." But they already pumped the fuel, so they had to pay for the fuel. If somebody did that to me, I'd never go back. So you have a lot of those people that are not going back because of how the city treated the boaters. I agree with the comment about the Minnesota guy. I think they ought to check for cards, or they ought to check.
They do now, by the way. No, they don't check for Boat US, but they absolutely, if you're going to get a resident discount, you've got to have your.
So, and they ought to check for the Boat US, a current Boat US card. I have one on my boats, both my boats. So I think that's something that, we lost people that we're never going to get back. And that's some of your revenue. So the $50,000 cost of this fraud investigation apparently is costing us about $500,000 a year.
Going the wrong way.
Going the wrong way. I agree. So I agree with that. But, and the other thing about Tom said about the people not boating, I can see the sandbar that's off of John's Pass from my house. Believe me, the amount of people that are going to the sandbar is more than ever, and they're all on boats. So I don't see the reduction in boating.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Anybody else? Oh, sure. Good. Absolutely.
When I can get my pen back. And let's not forget, though, if we are trying to implement those 25 recommendations, that all costs money. So I mean, it initially, right, there's an initial outlay. We need cameras. We need a way to fix our fuel so people can't pump it and run.
There is a cost
So those things are
associated.
going to cost money, and that may be part of the 500,000.
Yeah, no, there's a cost associated with it. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then there's a maintenance fee monthly, or yearly, which is pretty substantial. It was like $150,000 to $250,000 to install all this stuff and to make all this stuff work, and then about $100,000 a year to maintain it. So, yeah, that's gonna. Like I said, I don't know if everything's installed to where it's going to cost us money. Well, folks, I really appreciate you all coming out. I do hope we do this on other topics because I think it's a real good way to, get it out there. And again, I apologize. Look, I'm not a politician, and I'll be the first one to admit it. And some people can just get under my skin pretty quickly. So I do apologize for any outbursts that I had. But hopefully I made my points today, and I appreciate you all coming out. Thank you.
I don't think the draft that is out there, I don't think it should go that way, but I certainly would look at something else. So.